The Council called it a worthless rock. Humans called it home and fortified it. Overnight, Ambassador Zethkar of the Galactic Council stood before the massive viewing screen aboard the flagship Eternal Dominion, his 4 eyes blinking in rapid succession, a clear sign of confusion among his species. The barren planet designated as Sector 7G hung before them, like a brown marble against the void, its surface scarred by asteroid impacts and devoid of any meaningful atmosphere. "This cannot be correct," he muttered, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into standard galactic. "Run the scan again." Captain Vex Illa, a towering insectoid from the warrior caste of Kepler Prime, operated the controls with her blade-like appendages. "Scans confirm, Ambassador. Significant energy signatures across 17 locations on the planetary surface. Defensive installations, weapons platforms. What appears to be a thriving settlement." Zethkar's mandibles clicked in disbelief. 3 standard cycles ago, the Council had offered this worthless rock to the humans as part of the Terran integration protocol. It had been a gesture meant to appear generous while actually being dismissive, like offering a beggar a handful of sand and calling it a gift. The planet had no water, no breathable atmosphere, no resources worth mentioning. Even the Council's geologists had classified it as mining prohibitive due to its unstable core. The humans had accepted immediately. "Sir," Vex Illa's voice carried a note of uncertainty that was rare for her species. "We're receiving a transmission from the surface." "Put it through." The screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at a human face, weathered, smiling, with those peculiar forward-facing eyes that always made other species uncomfortable. The human wore what appeared to be a modified environmental suit, but behind him, through a transparent dome, they could see other humans moving about in shirt sleeves. "Howdy there, Council folks," the human said with that inexplicable cheerfulness his species was known for. "Name's Jake Morrison, Mayor of New Hope. Welcome to our little slice of paradise." Zethkar found his voice. "Paradise? This is a Class J, dead world. Your own atmospheric readings should confirm." "Oh, you mean the outside?" Jake gestured dismissively. "Yeah, that's a bit rough. But we've got it sorted. Would you folks like to come down for a tour? We've got coffee brewing, and Martha just pulled a batch of her famous apple pie out of the oven." The connection ended, leaving the Council delegation in stunned silence. 6 hours later, Zethkar found himself in an environmental suit, walking through an airlock that shouldn't have existed. The moment he stepped through, his suit's sensors went haywire, detecting breathable atmosphere, comfortable temperature, and humidity levels that suggested active terraforming technology far beyond anything in the Council's databases. Jake Morrison was waiting for him, now dressed in simple work clothes and genuinely radiating the warmth his species was infamous for. "Welcome to New Hope, Ambassador. Population 847. As of this morning, little Sarah Chen was born around 0300 hours. They walked through what could only be described as a small town. Humans moved about their daily business. Children played in a park where grass grew under an artificial sky. Elderly humans sat on benches feeding earthbirds that somehow thrived in this environment, and the smell of baking bread wafted from a nearby building. "How?" Zethkar finally managed. "The Council's best scientists said this world was uninhabitable for any known species." Jake's expression grew thoughtful. "Well, Ambassador, I reckon that's the difference between looking at a problem and looking at an opportunity. You folks saw a dead rock. We saw a blank canvas." He led Zethkar to an observation deck that overlooked a vast underground complex. Massive machines hummed with purpose. Atmospheric processors worked around the clock, and hydroponic farms stretched as far as the eye could see. "Took us about 18 hours to get the basic life support running," Jake continued conversationally. "Had to work fast. Some of the families brought babies, and you know how particular little ones can be about their environment. Another week to get the dome sealed and pressurized. The underground expansion took a bit longer, maybe 6 weeks, but we're not ones to complain about hard work." Zethkar's environmental suit was recording everything, but he knew the Council would never believe it. No species could terraform a dead world in 3 cycles. The technology required would take decades to deploy, assuming it existed at all. The defensive installations? He asked weakly. Oh, those. Jake's face lit up. Well, we figured if we're gonna call this place home, we ought to protect it proper. Besides, some of the folks here are veterans, old habits and all that. They get antsy if they don't have something to tinker with. As if summoned by his words, a human female approached. She was small by human standards, but carried herself with the bearing of a warrior. Jake, the perimeter's all set. We've got overlapping fields of fire covering every approach vector, and the orbital defense platforms just came online. Orbital defense platforms? Zethkar's voice cracked. Nothing fancy, the woman said with a shrug. Just some railguns and missile batteries, in case someone decides they want to take our home away from us. Jake nodded seriously. We're peaceful folks, Ambassador, but we take our home seriously. Earth taught us that much. That evening, as Zethkar sat in the New Hope community center sharing a meal with several human families, he watched children laugh while their parents discussed crop rotations and defensive patrol schedules with equal enthusiasm. These beings had taken a dead world that the Council's greatest minds had deemed worthless and transformed it into something that felt more alive than many core worlds. Why? He finally asked Jake, who was bouncing a human infant on his knee while the child's parents finished their dinner. Why take such a risk? Why work so hard for something so challenging? Jake looked down at the baby, then around at his community. Because it's ours, Ambassador. Every pipe we laid, every bolt we turned, every breath of air we made, it's ours in a way that no given world could ever be. We didn't just settle here. We built here. We chose here. The baby gurgled happily, reaching for Jake's face with tiny fingers. Besides, Jake added with that characteristic human grin, where else would we raise little Hope here? Her folks named her for the town, and the town's named for what we're building. This worthless rock, it's the foundation of something beautiful. As Zethkar returned to his ship the next morning, he carried with him images and sensor readings that would fundamentally change how the Council viewed humanity. They had offered the humans a worthless rock as charity, assuming it would humble them, perhaps even break their spirit. Instead, the humans had taken their worthless rock and turned it into exactly what they'd called it from the beginning, home, and they had fortified it overnight.